Member for Oropouche East.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on this motion presented by the Leader of the House. Madam Speaker, before us is a motion that seeks to affirm the notification of His Excellency, the President, of the appointment of a citizen, Mr. Dinanath Ramkissoon, to the Police Service Commission. Madam Speaker, we have heard the presentation from the member for the Gomartin Northeast, who presented the CV in the context of the appointment to the Police Service Commission. And in a brief address, spoke to the roles and responsibilities of the Police Service Commission and the critical importance that that commission plays, particularly at a time like this, challenged as we are by a spate of crime, murders and serious offenses being committed on a daily basis. Madam Speaker, it is noteworthy that by virtue of Act number 6 of 2006 that amended our Constitution and our legal arrangements to ensure that persons proposed to the Police Service Commission come before the Parliament, at least their resume. It was a very landmark achievement by 2006, coming out of a bipartisan approach of the then opposition United National Congress and the incumbent government of the former member for San Fernando East, Mr. Patrick Manning. It was meant, Madam Speaker, to ensure that in this one critical commission, because I believe this is the only commission where the members are brought to the Parliament for public scrutiny in this manner, it was because of the critical need to ensure that we move the envelope yet again towards transparency, openness, and public scrutiny of persons who are appointed to such commissions. And it was an attempt that started, I imagine, since 1962. My friend from Moruga Tableland, who regaled us on a previous occasion of his knowledge of economic history, regrettably believing himself to be a stepchild of the ministry, but he understands economic history well and understands the history of the country. And it came out of our independence experience, where the early founding fathers of the independence movement sought to protect citizens from the political directorate by virtue of creating the independent service commissions. And that had moved and moved and moved until a major goalpost came in 2006 that allowed for something like the American, akin to the American congressional system, where a person can be scrutinized by elected officials. And this is done in the lower house by the elected members of Parliament. Maybe in another time in the future, the persons themselves may have to present themselves to the House or a committee of the House and be interviewed in another forum. But as it is now, those persons come here by virtue of the CV, and we are allowed to scrutinize. We may look at their CV, ensure that it is consistent with the legislation, with the intent of the legislation, and to ensure that those persons are fit and proper. I want to begin by congratulating first Mr. Ramkissoon on accepting the offer to serve in this manner and by subjecting himself to public scrutiny. There was a time in this country, Madam Speaker, when persons would be serving on service commissions and teaching service commissions and other commissions, and the general public would not even know who is on a commission. You would not know who. Because in time gone by, it would be persons of a certain class, in some cases you believe a certain clique, a certain club, and by virtue of connections to a political elite, they will serve on commissions and so on. That we sought to change over the last few decades to ensure that persons now come before us and the national community can scrutinize such persons for their appointments. And that is something that we are very mindful of. Madam Speaker, the mover of the motion spoke about the importance of modern policing, developing independent institutions and new strategies to combat criminal activity. And in doing so, the Police Service Commission serves a very, very critical function. And we cannot overstate the function of the Police Service Commission, Madam Speaker. And if by virtue of the delivery of the mover, he dealt with one matter, and I think concentrated on one matter as well, which is the critical matter of the appointment of a Commissioner of Police. It is a very critical matter, the appointment of the Commissioner of Police. And within recent time, that matter has been in the public domain by virtue of other parliamentary sit-ins and other initiatives of the government, and the government over the past as well, I dare say. Madam Speaker, it is not the only function of the Commission to deal with the matter of appointment of a Commissioner of Police. Indeed, the Police Service Commission, by virtue of Section 123 as well, undertake critical functions dealing with the police service. And it involves a critical function as an appeal tribunal as well, an appellate body, to listen to appeals of police officers against decisions made by the Commissioner of Police pursuant to his role, expanded role, by the amendments that were brought and the new laws, including the Police Service Act, that was brought in 2006. Madam Speaker, a government cannot speak about strengthening institutions, independent constitutional institutions, in one breath, and do not seek to approve and support persons who are well-equipped and fit to occupy those positions. And it is, of course, for that purpose we are here. The Minister indicated to us clearly the qualifications of the nominee before us. It is something that we have all had an opportunity to take a look at, and I will get to that in a few minutes. But Madam Speaker, it is also important to note that the Police Service Commission has the responsibility, apart from appointing persons to hold or act in the office of Commissioner of Police, to hear and determine by virtue of Section 123 and by virtue of the Amendment Act of 2006, to hear and determine appeals by police officers against decisions made by the Commissioner in respect of promotions and discipline, to exercise disciplinary control over the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner of Police, including removal of those officers from office. But the Police Service Commission also plays the role of monitoring the efficiency and effectiveness of the performance of the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner of Police in the discharge of their function. They also prepare an annual performance appraisal report in such a form as may be prescribed by the Commission, respecting and for the information of the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. Madam Speaker, this is a very, very critical function that the Police Service Commission plays. Over the past years, they have also had, as the member indicated, the opportunity to involve themselves in the public discourse on crime and have hosted stakeholder consultations. There was one, I believe, in 2012-13 there, which ended with something called the Hilton Consensus, which dealt with the reform of the Police Service Commission. And the critical role of this commission revolves around not just the appointment of the Commissioner of Police. Madam Speaker, I would have thought that the Minister presenting this would have indicated to the House not only the government's commitment to the independent institution of the Police Service Commission, but what do they foresee the role of the Independent Police Service Commission, what role that commission would play in the future. Now, if we are to look at the role and responsibility of the commission, it must synchronize with the qualifications of the nominee. Because if you have a role and responsibility of a task, you must mesh the task with the qualifications of persons who are going to occupy the office to fulfill that task. And the government, at some time today, or in the very near future, ought to tell the country as well what would be the relationship between another policy proposal this government made in the national budget. What is the relationship between the proposed police management agency and the Police Service Commission. Because the law, as currently structured, allows the Police Service Commission to monitor the performance of the commissioner and deputy commissioner. And those persons can bring their reports, and I'll speak to that reporting process in a bit, but they can bring their reports to the commission as far as they manage the human and the financial resources that are available to the commission. So that the Police Service Commission monitors the effectiveness of the commissioner and deputy commissioner. And the commissioner and deputy commissioner in the law has now the authority to manage their budget, to manage their human resources. But what happens when a police management agency evolves? Since the police management agency, so far, is not connected to the Police Service Commission, does the police management agency supersede the management of the Commissioner of Police? And if so, will the police management agency report to the Police Service Commission? What is the relationship? And those are critical issues that the government ought to address its mind to, if not today, certainly in the near future, because there are implications for management, for authority, and for control. If it is that the government believes that the Police Service Commission has not played a satisfactory role in calling the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioner to account for their management, because, Madam Speaker, I want to submit that the very policy of introducing a police management agency supposes that the government has no confidence in the Police Service Commission. They have no confidence in the Police Service Commission. And on a previous occasion, issues were raised concerning the changing role of the Police Service Commission and the appointment of the Commissioner of Police, where it is now left to an independent firm, and I imagine that process has been triggered quite recently by the Minister of National Security, an independent firm to undertake the recruitment process, the assessment process, and pass on by way of be almost a messenger. The Police Service Commission becomes a messenger to the President to appoint a police commissioner. So we have already seen this government watering down the role of the Police Service Commission, and today the government should tell us what is the role of the Police Management Authority Agency vis-a-vis the Police Service Commission, and are they committed to a truly independent Police Service Commission? That is a fundamental issue that they ought to deal with. Because, Madam Speaker, there is a disquiet in the society today about this creeping incident of the government seeking to control constitutionally independent institutions.
Yes, central bank.
Colleagues have raised the issue, which I will just raise in passing because it's not the subject of this debate. I hope we can debate on another occasion. The role of the government and the executive in taking away the authority of the parliament in its own construction for its own parliamentary building.
But I would just like to remind you of Standing Order 48-1. I've allowed you a certain measure of leeway, but please confine yourself to the subject matter of this debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, as I said, I just mentioned that in passing, because I'm dealing with the independent institution of the Police Service Commission, not the Red House and the hijacking of the Red House project. But the Police Service Commission, Madam Speaker, has the functions in law to deal with appeals from the police officers. Madam Speaker, we are informed that at this time there may be over 200, possibly 250 appeals before the Police Service Commission by police officers. In 1 year, in 2013, I believe, 3 appeals were dealt with. The Commission has been crying out for help, for resources. I'm very happy that when we were in office, it is under the government of the People's Partnership that the Police Service Commission got help by the relocation of their offices to Tanapuna. For many years, they have been seeking assistance for accommodation. It became so bad, Madam Speaker, that employees of the Police Service Commission didn't want to go to work in Port of Spain in fear of crime. And we had to take urgent action to relocate their offices to Tanapuna. And since then, they have been crying out for other facilities and other processes. Madam Speaker, I am informed that the current arrangement where the Police Service Commission is dependent on the Director of Personnel Administration for assistance with human resources, finance, minor goods and services and so on, is unworkable. Unworkable. I am told that for 6 months they couldn't even move the newspapers arriving from the Port of Spain office to the office in Tanapura. For 6 months. Simple things like getting chairs and furniture and so on. Takes a long time. Now, I am not blaming anybody or any particular agency. These are systems that evolve over time, and in the public service, they take a lot of time. Over the years, I have known of problems in the Immigration Division where we had to move overnight with another agency just to help, because the established processes take a long time. It may well be that the time has come for the government to consider the recommendations that have emerged over the years in terms of providing the Police Service Commission with greater control over resources and over its budget. So that the Police Service Commission has been asking, and Madam Speaker, I would make reference because we have already in the Parliament 2 reports of the Joint Select Committee appointed to inquire and report on municipal corporations and service commissions, with the exception of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. We have reports, Madam Speaker, the 4th report and the 8th report. The 4th report dated, published by the Parliament, of course, of 2012, and the 8th report, Madam Speaker, of 2013, where it is very clear that the Police Service Commission came to the Parliament, to the Joint Select Committee, made their case, and recommendations, the issues were heard, recommendations were made, and Madam Speaker, the appointment of Mr. Ramkissoon, who is qualified, as the member indicated, in matters of law, but also, Madam Speaker, qualified in matters of management, not just law, management, contract negotiations, as we see here, dealing with human resource and industrial relations matters as well, and would have come through the rank of the police service, would have some knowledge of the operations of the police service, but would also have knowledge, Madam Speaker, of the operation of oversight organizations, organizations that exercise oversight. And the recommendations included, Madam Speaker, emanating from the work of Parliament itself. So we don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go and have a next consultation on the Police Service Commission and how to make it more effective. We have reports of the Parliament. The government has to indicate a commitment to implementing the recommendations, which they themselves sign off to. Because as you know, the working of these committees suggests that we have had members of the government and opposition and the independent benches. In fact, there are a couple of members of this committee who are today in the House at this moment, and they would be aware of those reports, where recommendations were made for the Commission, Madam Speaker, to have its own separate vote of funds in the national budget and its own dedicated accounting officers, because the arrangements with the Director of Personnel Administration are efficient and outmoded. The recommendation that I want to come to, a key recommendation, involves a matter that someone like Mr. Ramkissoon here would be very much alive to, would very much have to work with. And this has to do, Madam Speaker, with the committee recommends provisions be made for the appeals tribunal to function on a full-time basis. And that's a critical recommendation. Because, Madam Speaker, it is known that when appeals are made and they take ages to be determined, it is to the disadvantage of the police officers, it is to the disadvantage of the society. Officers who ought to be fighting crime and working in the service, they are demotivated because their matters are pending years, their morale is low. In some cases, but not in all, they may be off duty on full pay leave pending determination of their appeals. And if the system is not strengthened to ensure that appeals are heard, and we started this work, it's not to say we didn't know of it, we know of it. We started the work by providing professional accommodation, adequate accommodation and facilities for the Police Service Commission by 2013. But more is required to be done, including legislative change, to ensure that the appeals tribunal function effectively by providing support infrastructure to assist the tribunal to fulfill its mandate. And if this is not done, we can appoint Mr. Ramkissoon today, and we could appoint persons eminently qualified like Mr. Ramkissoon and others. But if we do not provide the infrastructure for them to operate, do not bring the legislative reform needed and the policy change required from Cabinet, then the Commission would continue and would be struggling to deal with appeals, to deal with with the one area of appeals. I am very happy when I read the CV of Mr. Ramkissoon. We were very happy to look at the breadth of experience and the professional training and experience. And there was a time, Madam Speaker, when a matter concerning a nominee came before this House, and we spent an entire night, I believe, debating and/or. And we went down the wire with great discourse on interpretation as to what qualified and experience as opposed to qualified or experience in law, finance, and management, and so on. And thankfully, I don't think we'll go down that road today, given the clarity with which the Minister presented his motion. But, Madam Speaker, a critical function of this Commission is also to engage the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, to engage them in a scientific method, not by VAPs and not by calling in people and asking them any old question thing, but on a scientific, using scientific methodologies to engage them on performance appraisal, measuring their performance. And it is to that issue that I speak now, because if we do not have persons with the necessary qualifications to undertake such a task, then the performance appraisal function can go down the drain. And Mr. Ramkissoon has that type of training as well, apart from the legal training and so on. He has that training as well in overseeing high-level officials in the public service, in monitoring their performance and so on, and in auditing their work. Because the Police Service Commission is really a commission that is there in a way to audit the work of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And the government now is preoccupied and fascinated by auditing. Everywhere you go now, they're auditing everything.
Audit and reviews.
And my friend from Port of Spain, North, St. Anne's West, could tell us if he joins the debate. I know he has a big interest in auditing government work, functions and so on. Tell us about that. But the Police Service Commission is, in effect, auditing the work of the Commissioner of Police. And they are an independent institution. They're not a private institution that you take an audit, you're auditing at a private institution, and government ministers regularly visiting private accounting firms to influence in one way or another, politically influence the conduct of audits. Madam Speaker, that is taking place today. This is an independent institution, the Police Service Commission. A government minister cannot walk in the Police Service Commission and seek to bully or influence the conduct of audits on agencies of the government. And if any minister is doing that, they ought to stop, cease and desist, because they will pollute auditing reports coming from private auditing firms. So, Madam Speaker, this is why the Police Service Commission is so important. This is why it is so important. That is why it is so important. And the Attorney General may wish to speak to that, because he's aware of the problem. And he does nothing about it. He does nothing about it. And, Madam Speaker, as I am on the issue of the audit of the police service, over the years, the Police Service Commission has been proactive. I recall a couple of years ago, the Police Service Commission called in a former deputy commissioner and actually sought to question the commissioner on the allegation of the appointment of a flying squad or something like that. Today, the Police Service Commission may want to call in the Commissioner of Police to ask him what is the policy on police officers hosting TV programs, on whether these TV programs are sponsored by Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And you see, this will upset them. This will upset them, I know this, because they know they are interfering in the conduct of independent audits. Madam Speaker, the Police Service Commission may wish to engage the Commissioner of Police on the role and function of police officers undertaking multimedia and media presentations, whether they represent the police service or they don't. That was a matter that arose a couple of years ago. That has serious consequences for discipline and for the conduct of police duties. Madam Speaker, when you look at the resume of the gentleman before us as well, you're also seeing qualification, certification, participation in programs and so on that deals with the overseeing important institutions. I think he came from NIDCO, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. But also with experience at the Integrity Commission and investigations dealing with allegations of corruption and so on. And these are matters in the police service that they are dealing with now. So it is timely that someone like this can find themselves on the Police Service Commission. Madam Speaker, the Police Service Commission may also want to discuss with the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner the introduction of more stringent, more regular psychological evaluation of police officers. This is a country today where criminals are killing innocent citizens, where policemen are killing themselves. And it may require greater emphasis on the psychological evaluation and regular evaluation of police officers in a manner that is very systematic, calculated, without any need to disgrace or shame police officers and so on. The Police Service Commission ought to take a look at this. And someone like Mr. Ramkissoon, with his qualifications and also the experience, I think he joined the police service in 1975, yes. In 1975, joined the police service, Madam Speaker, 1975 to the year 2000, would have a good knowledge of the police service, the functioning of police officers, the stress that they subject themselves to on duty and off duty, and whether or not that type of stress over a period of time can cause a level of depression, distress that lead them to commit criminal actions themselves or to endanger the life of ordinary citizens and their own lives. And the Police Service Commission is well poised to undertake that matter. Madam Speaker, the issue also arose over the past with the Police Service Commission having responsibility to appoint the Commissioner of Police. That has been brought to the Parliament earlier. I don't want to spend too much time on that either. But to indicate that it is not a straightforward matter at this time also, although the government may wish to suggest that is a straightforward matter now. Because the role of the Police Service Commission has been undermined. It has been undermined in that process. And we are at a very important critical juncture in the evolution of the Police Service Commission. And it is an issue that Mr. Ramkissoon and other commissioners may well want to consider at this time. Because there is a feeling that the Police Service Commission will not be strengthened, but will be weakened at a time like this in terms of their capacity to undertake their function. And you can have a sense of it, Madam Speaker, because in the recommendations coming out of the 8th report of the Joint Select Committee was very instructive, that the Police Service Commission made recommendations to the Parliament, which the Parliament adopted. So these are recommendations which the Parliament agrees to, but it has to be translated into policy and law. That the Police Service Commission, yes.
Time has expired. You're entitled to a 15 minutes extension.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you intend to avail yourself of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Leave is granted.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker,
to know who is that minister walking in audits and so on.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Madam Speaker, so that the Police Service Commission, in undertaking its duties, need to be cognizant as well of that changing political environment. Need to be cognizant of the fact that they may be understaffed, under-resourced, given a changing political climate, the coming of the Police Management Agency, the watering down of their role as it relates to the appointment of a Commissioner of Police. And now, Madam Speaker, I took note of the statements of the Minister when he moved the motion and spoke of the qualifications, speaking of the mandate and professional standards required and so on, that it struck us that it may also be an attempt by the government to delay, Madam Speaker, to delay the implementation of recommendations in the Joint Select Committee reports. They have recommended here, which the Parliament accepted, that the law be changed to allow the Police Service Commission greater teeth to mandate and to ensure that the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner, as the case may be, present in a timely manner their reports and other documents requested by the Police Service Commission. As it is now, the Police Service Commission can request documents, can request reports. The police will tell the Commission, yes, we are working on that, but of course we are very busy, we are doing other things. Months can pass, possibly years, and the Police Service Commission will not get the documents available. In fact, at the last call, they said they had 60% completed an evaluation of the Commissioner of Police. They are waiting on documents. And the Parliament agreed that the law and policy be so changed to allow, Madam Speaker, the Police Service Commission to mandate and order the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner to ensure that they supply information in a timely manner to the Police Service Commission. Because, Madam Speaker, what is the sense you have all these commissions, independent commissions and so on, and you on paper they are there, but you do not give them the resources, you do not change the law, reform the law, to ensure that they have greater teeth to do their work, and then you try to invent new institutions, like the Police Management Agency, new institutions to manage the police service, while the existing institutions are understaffed, under-resourced, and clearly without personnel. In fact, there's another matter that they raised in the same report. Madam Speaker, I don't have the time to read in detail the findings of the Joint Select Committee, but to indicate that the Police Service Commission requested and the Joint Select Committee accepted that the strength of the Police Service Commission, the human resources, the professional resources be increased to allow them to do their job. Whether it is those persons on the tribunal for the appeals or simple office staff. Simple office staff. And those things take ages working with the current arrangements with the Director of Personnel Administration. They recommended here, they recommended that another method be found to ensure that the Commission gets effective support in human resources and physical resources, since the current arrangements with the Director of Personnel Administration is not effective. That is the recommendation. And the government ought to come to the Parliament and indicate to us today whether they believe that they will bring a legislative agenda. And Madam Speaker, I wanted to note in passing that over the years, matters like these came at the end of a parliamentary sitting where we have debated 3 or 4 government bills, and at the end we passed this. Today this is the only thing on the agenda, only thing that we came here for, because the government themselves, having complained for 5 years, today they have no legislative agenda. They started on the wrong foot when the Attorney General announced the budget date and the Minister of Finance spoke to the legislative agenda. They started on the wrong foot. And they have no legislative agenda. That is why we are here today at 1:30 to deal with a matter that really ought to come at the end. They have none. Their agenda is to blame the last government, prosecute, conduct politically polluted audits where ministers are polluting that process. That's the agenda.
Who are those ministers?
That is the agenda. And Madam Speaker, coming to the resume of the nominee, because the minister anticipated that the opposition will support. The minister anticipated that the opposition will support. I don't know where you got that from. But looking at the qualifications of the person, in fact, the only thing they don't have here, I think, is his date of birth. But, but he must be a seasoned and experienced man to join the police service in 1975. So looking at the CV here as presented, the person is qualified to serve on this commission, has the requisite qualification. The only thing that we are in fear of is that a person like this making the sacrifice for public service, putting his name up today. I think he's from the glorious constituency of where? Oropouche? Sure. Well, everybody claiming now, but I think as a prominent citizen who has really dedicated himself to public service as well and subjected himself to this scrutiny, one want to be careful that persons, when they subject themselves to this scrutiny, do not go onto commissions and then the very executive that proposed them undermine the commission and undermine their roles. Because that has been a problem in this country, where we elevate prominent citizens to commissions and so on, and then you undermine the commission. They leave in disgust, in disgrace. They believe that, you know, their work is undermined, and that ought not to happen at the Police Service Commission, given where we are. So, Madam Speaker, the government of the day has certain responsibilities before it, if they are serious. If they are serious. This, as you know, and as I know, is not a crime debate. This is not a time for us to talk about the crime debate. I'm sure the Minister of National Security can do that at another time. Needless to say, I think the murder rate is how much? 68 for this year. So, while I'm talking, somebody was shot. So, Madam Speaker, it is a critical problem facing this country today. It is a critical problem. Over the years, while we were happy that serious crime decreased by almost 50% over the period 2010 to 2015, the murder rate was going down. The murder rate was edging down. Yes.
You
Sure.
of the standing order with respect to relevance, could you bring back to the matter before us?
Speaker. So as I said, crime is the issue. The Police Service Commission, by virtue of its role and responsibilities, is a crime-fighting commission. It has to be. The Police Service Commission is a crime-fighting commission. If they collapse and don't do their job effectively, it will not help in the fight against crime. It will not help. So, Madam Speaker, I understand clearly this issue. And the government ought to make a commitment to increase the resources, properly staff, provide the independence necessary for the Police Service Commission in terms of its own budget, its own capacity to command the human resources, goods and services. It is not a joke when you hear that a Police Service Commission say it takes 6 months before a newspaper could change the Express and Guardian news. They come from one address to change it to the next one. It takes 6 months to do that. And these are the issues that the government ought to be dealing with. These are the issues. Not threatening people, not blaming others. They are there now. They cried out to be there, they're there. They're in charge now. They're in charge now. So don't blame former administration. When we were there, we gave some resources, we gave office accommodation, we moved, ensure we brought nominees to the House, ensure they were affirmed and so on. The task is now to the government to ensure that this commission works. Because as we have stated, it is critical. It cannot be that 247 appeals are before a commission and they deal with 3 per year. How much years it would take to deal with all of that? And your human resources lay idle. Surely a matter like that deserves emphasis, policy and legal intervention by the government. And today, this was an opportune moment. I'm hoping that the moment is not lost. But this was an opportune moment for the government to make such a commitment, which they could not, which certainly the member for the Gomartin Northeast, deputizing, I imagine, to do this job, reading from a prepared text which someone gave him a few minutes before, would not have been in a position to make those commitments But if the debate, if the Minister of National Security, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, I almost going to say the Junior Minister, but I don't like hearing that, the Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General, you know.
What they have my hair doing?
The Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Honorable Minister, if the Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General would join the debate, they would tell us what are their proposals as far as it relates to the Police Service Commission. It cannot be that the government just come today and say, look, this is the name, the fellow is well qualified. We support this, let's move. It cannot be that. That is really to take a superficial approach to a public debate on the Police Service Commission. When the laws were drafted, the intent, Madam Speaker, was not just to bring a CV and say, this is a good CV, let's deal with it and pass it that way. It was really to engage in a debate on the citizen, the nominee, and the functions and challenges of such a critical Police Service Commission. You know, so that I am very disappointed that the Minister, in introducing this, chose to take that really contractionary and short and brief approach without, he was short on substance. He was short on substance, which didn't surprise us. But it's sad that the government did not elaborate. And particularly with this troubling issue of this police management agency, which they shoot off policy on the hoof during the budget. And to this day, nobody knows anything about the legal and policy framework for the implementation of a police management agency. Nobody, I imagine the government members don't know either, of how are they going to deal with this matter. And they have introduced the issue of the municipal police as well, to expand that. All their proposals they introduce must be functioning within the context of an overall perspective, including the Police Service Commission. They made a lot of noise over the years about certain members on the commission. Today, hearing the minister, I imagine they're in support of this nominee. They're in support of this nominee, and that is fine. But supporting a nominee and a good nominee to the Police Service Commission will not change anything. Will not change anything unless you don't go the full distance in providing support for such an independent commission. And unless, and I warn again in closing, Madam Speaker, I warn again against this tendency to undermine constitutionally independent institutions and their work in favor of private institutions, because they have privatized the recruitment of a commissioner of police. They have privatized auditing.
Yes.
The Auditor General is there to conduct audits on government offices and government ministries. Pass that clean. And the Police Service Commission is here to audit the police service, the management and function and the use of resources. We are very happy. When we were in office, the police never had it so good. They never had it so good. A fleet of cars, bulletproof vests, you name it, everything.
Largest wage increase.
Largest wage increase, what, the $1,000 a month and so on. Never had it so good. You know, never had it so good. They speak about low detection rate, and what are you doing about it? You detecting little or nothing. Because you speak about that over the years, but there are no plans. It is a government, as far as the Police Service Commission is concerned, and this area, it is a government without plan, without policy, and this is a betrayal of the people. And Madam Speaker, while we affirm and support this nominee, we are afraid that this is very little, precious little, because this government doesn't have the willpower to bring the institutional changes necessary. And they will not bring the institutional changes necessary. 6 months is coming. I think it will go just now. And the country will ask itself, are we better off today than we were prior to September 2015? And the resounding answer will be no. No. It will be no. Murders continue. Joblessness. Business closure. And the Police Service Commission, Madam Speaker, the Police Service Commissioner, in managing probably the most critical area of national importance, will need the best help that they can get. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, we do support the nominee, and wish him all the best in his future endeavors.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.